This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. My name is Paul Ledesma, Director of Undergraduate Admission at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
And we're back with another veteran of the podcast, although it's been a little while since we've had you on the pod. Dominie, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dominie. I am a senior studying biomedical engineering from Kahului, Hawaii.
So I'm excited, Dominie. I don't know what we're talking about. What is this episode all about? This is actually one of the first times I really have no idea what we're about to go into.
So the episode is about female leadership in Viterbi.
Oh, cool.
That's actually what I started off thinking it was going to be. It's definitely still that, but let me just maybe give some background. So I interviewed two presidents of student organizations. One was Glory. She's the president of LavaLab, which is an entrepreneurship student org. And then Leena, she's the president of CAIS++, which is a computer science, artificial intelligence student org. So the conversation is just about like what it means to be president of a student org, what are the responsibilities, and then it sort of transitioned into being more about like leadership and what they feel like makes a good leader and how their leadership styles have sort of evolved during their time as presidents.
This is such an appropriate episode based on what we just talked about before we started recording. Basically, the women at Viterbi are leading the way. They are doing amazing things. They are constantly, just raising the bar from an academic perspective, from an engagement perspective, from a leadership perspective. This is so great to hear. And I think what's most important is that young girls out there that I hope are listening to the podcast can see the type of environment that exists at Viterbi, and more specifically, young men that are out there need to listen to figure out how to make themselves a little bit better in this arena. This idea of maybe knowing how to do the math problem is not what's going to get you to be successful down the road. And as our episodes are showing in this arc that we're doing over these couple weeks, it's about what you do in a combination of relationships and engagement, and the ideas of building on your experiences and navigating ambiguity. And our women are really leading the way. So this is fantastic. I'm so excited for this episode. Let's jump right in, Dominie, and you take it from here. And
So welcome to the Viterbi Voices podcast, Glory and Leena. Thank you for being here. Today we are talking about a topic that I am very excited about, and that topic is female leadership in Viterbi. So we are all presidents of student organizations this year, and I want to dive into what it's like to be a president and what you have learned in the role. So let's first start by introducing yourselves. So name, year, major, and hometown.
I'll go first. I'm Glory Keynes. I am a senior here at Viterbi studying computer science and business administration, which is the single major at Viterbi, and my hometown is Rye, New York.
And my name is Leena. I'm also a senior at USC, majoring in computer science, cognitive science, and linguistics, and my hometown is Cupertino in California.
Can you tell our listeners briefly about the student organizations that you are president of?
Sure. So I am the president of LavaLab. LavaLab is USC's student-run startup incubator. So what that means is every semester, we take a cohort of students who are really passionate about entrepreneurship, and we help them build a startup throughout the semester. That startup can be whatever they want. It's been around for around 8 years. We have a community of around 350 people from over the past 8 years. And we do a ton of things internally with our community. We have fireside chats with CEOs and founders. In the past, we've had Elon Musk and Evan Spiegel of Snapchat come. So LavaLab is a really great organization if you're interested in building the future startups.
Yeah, every time I talk to a prospective freshman, I tell them to join LavaLab. how cool it is.
Leena, I'll just send everyone your way to CAIS. You send everyone my way for LavaLab, we're done.
Yeah, like everyone in Viterbi is in both clubs. Like that's the ideal situation. But yeah, I'm the president of CAIS++. So we're the student branch of USC's Center for Artificial Intelligence in Society. So that acronym is CAIS, and we're CAIS++ because we're like the undergraduates of CAIS. And our mission is to advance AI for social good. And we do that, I guess, in two main ways. First, by teaching a self-designed AI curriculum, which focuses on machine learning to our members, but our curriculum is also available to the general public. It's on our website for anyone at USC or outside USC. So that's the first, I guess, pillar of our mission. And the second is the actual project-based involvement with AI for social good. So our members work on groups and projects with professors and industry clients to tackle different societal problems with AI.
Wow, your organization sounds so cool. I actually I did not know much about either one. So it's really cool to hear about. Super curious. So like in LavaLab, is it mainly like engineering students, or do you get, even some business students and some other majors?
So when you apply to LavaLab, you apply as either a developer, a designer, or a product manager. So we have a ton of engineers because half of our cohort is developers, but then our product managers and designers are really from all over the place. So they could be from the academy, Dornsife, Marshall. We have architecture majors, we have pre-med students, we have film majors. The range goes on, but we do have half engineering students from Viterbi. And
then Leena, are your members mostly like computer science, you would say?
I'd say, yeah, about 60% of our club are computer science majors. But then we also do have a lot of people from Dornsife in different majors. So lots of computational neuroscience, applied math, linguistics. But I think in general, a lot of people are just mainly interested in the mind side of AI or the application side, so from applied math.
How does one become president in your org? Is it elected? And what was, your sort of road to being president? Were you involved from freshman year?
I can start us off, but I actually wrote about LavaLab in my USC application. It was something that I had heard about and I was really interested in doing. A big reason why I wanted to do CS at Viterbi was because of the entrepreneurial spirit. But I was too scared to apply to LavaLab my freshman year, which is a rookie mistake. And every single time a freshman comes, I tell them they have to apply. But I applied my sophomore year first semester and got in. I applied as a developer. It was the first time I'd ever built an app on my own with my team, of course. Had a wonderful experience. I just, dove in head first and I realized these are the people who I want to work with for the rest of my life. Find your co-founders is our mission. But then the next year I became director of industry relations. So I was in charge of hosting, planning, and executing all of our fireside chats. So I got Ryan Hudson, who's the founder of Honey, interviewed him right after their acquisition with PayPal. Jared Morgenstern, who's the founder of Raya, which is the dating app for celebrities. So that was a really awesome experience. And then right after that, we did interviews for president position, and that just led right in for my senior year.
Nice. What about you, Leena?
So, yeah, pretty much the same. I came to USC really wanting to join CAIS++, and I applied to the club in my first week of freshman year. I guess I always tell freshmen to just apply to whatever clubs they want to join immediately, because as Glory said, there's really no point like feeling like unprepared to join a club. It's always worth applying straight up. And so in my first year at USC, I was a general club member. I finished the CAIS++ curriculum in the first semester, and I worked on a cancer detection project second semester, and that's when I decided I wanted to get more involved in like the running and vision of the club. So I joined eBoard as a sophomore. I was the VP of operations then, and then as a junior, I was the VP of projects, so in charge of sourcing and advising all the like technical projects for the club. And by that time, I was super invested in the club, and I had a lot of experience in the different aspects required to run the club. So I ran for president last year, and yeah, I won the election, so I'm president now.
Nice job. Congrats.
And, yeah.
And I just remembered something. I forgot to sort of tell the people tuning in that I am a president as well. I'm president of the Associated Students of Biomedical Engineering, and it's a professional organization, obviously geared toward biomedical engineers, but we put on professional, academic, social, mentorship, hands-on, like biomedical engineering events, like a medical device design competition, so a bunch of different things. It's kind of a similar road to you all in that I was involved from early on. I think freshman year, I was like one of the like freshman representatives, and then I eventually like ran for president my junior year. So this kind of leads me to my next question. For me, like I didn't know for sure I wanted to be president until I would say my junior year. I really realized that this club had made a huge impact on me as a human, but me as like a student. And I was really passionate about like moving things forward and wanting to introduce new things even to the club. So what were your motivations for running for president?
Leena, you want to start this one off?
Sure. I guess my main motivation was really just I wanted to become more involved in advancing the overall direction of the club. So I had a vision for, I guess, connecting students interested in research and AI to more research opportunities, have more programs for like industry people to industry opportunities and all of that. I also wanted to expand collaborations across campus. So actually, it's really cool that you're the BME president because we're actually doing a collaboration this semester with the BME student organization. It's our first collaboration with like a non-CAIS student group, which is exciting. And then we also set up a collaboration with a Brazilian educational technology startup. So I really wanted to just expand their impact of the club, as well as do my best at like serving the club members' interests. So yeah, that's why I ran.
For me, I think when I was in LavaLab, even as a sophomore, and when I went through it on eBoard, I think there were things I saw that could change and that could be better. So I went in knowing that one, gender parity was a huge thing that I wanted to reach. And that was when I went in, LavaLab was a totally different thing. And there were not a lot of women in the organization. And that was a huge thing for me, and really just overall making LavaLab more inclusive. You know, as an organization, when you have applications, it's always going to be exclusive, but how can we take away this pretentious image and really make entrepreneurship accessible and inclusive on USC's campus, and really grow USC to have like these resources and for LavaLab to help the external community. So I think that I saw there were places where we could go further and we could look deeper in that we hadn't looked into, and I was ready to tackle those.
Yeah, that brings me to a sort of side tangent. What is like the female to male ratio of your organizations? Because it's interesting for, you know, my organization, ASPME, it's actually more female. And so the past like 3 presidents before me were actually female. What's your, you know, leadership? What has that been like in your orgs?
So our leadership right now, of 9 of us, 6 of us are women, and 3 of them are men. So it's a pretty solid breakdown. And we did reach gender parity a year ago. And I think Leena and I have had many conversations about this, but it definitely took a lot of energy. But I think we are there. But there's a lot of other places that we have to work on, that we have been focusing our energy towards.
Yeah, our board has 6 people, and 2 of them are female. So that's, I guess, it's not too bad. But we also have, so our club itself, I believe our entering class last semester was 40% female, 60% male. And I believe that's the current distribution right now.
Yeah, so I think maybe CS is more, there's probably more males, men,
Yeah.
and then BME is actually maybe slightly toward the females.
Yeah. I think we have had an increase because when I first joined the club, it was very much male dominated, and I was the first, I guess, woman on e-board and the first woman president. But yeah, we have a lot more gender parity now.
Yeah, same with us.
Nice. So before I jump into leadership and those deep questions about that, I just wanted to ask what the responsibilities of a president is in your organization. So I can kind of start off for us. I run our weekly e-board meetings. I have an e-board of like 16 members, and which is kind of large.
Huge.
We have like 3 freshman representatives that kind of add to the number, but so that's kind of the main I kind of oversee all of the operations through those meetings. But then my biggest probably event per se is the Makeathon, which is a medical device design competition that's happening actually this month. So it's been pretty busy, but the president sort of oversees a separate committee that will put on this big event. So I would say, obviously the president has a lot of, talking to the e-board members, showing up to all events and setting a good example. But I would say those 2 are my main responsibilities.
Yeah, I think pretty similarly, I run the weekly e-board meetings with the 9 of us, and I kind of see the overall operations of each position for our e-board. So I guess, people come to me with updates, we brainstorm together. My keyword as president, my e-board makes fun of me, is brainstorm. I'm like, let's have a meeting to brainstorm. Because I want to brainstorm stuff with everyone. And then just make sure everything is running smoothly. And then I think the biggest thing is kind of having a vision for the organization and making sure that everything that we do is centered around that. So every single aspect, whether it be industry relations, marketing, sponsorship, follows alongside that vision that I set either for the year or for the semester.
Yeah, I think, apart from the main part of like being in charge of the vision, I think, all the different like logistics aspects of running weekly e-board meetings, running general meetings, so setting an agenda for all of those, talking to lots of sponsors to try and get more funding for the club. So it's really just the external side of the club, but then also just managing the logistics of the internal side.
Moving on to leadership, what do you both think is a good leader? Like, what makes a good leader?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, a leader is just someone who's focused on doing what's best for the other people in the club. So it's not just about setting the vision, but also making sure that everything that's being done is to facilitate the club members' advancement and helping them achieve their goals and potential. So it is a leadership role, but it's also a service role as well.
I love that. I completely agree with what Leena said. I think being a leader and being empathetic is really important, and putting yourself in everyone else's shoes, and exactly what Leena said, like making sure, like, is that person included in the conversation? Are they growing? Is there some setback? Are they not going to be able to perform? It's okay if they don't perform because maybe XYZ reason. And so really understanding where everyone is at in your organization or just in the leadership position, and making sure that you are able to create an environment where people are able to thrive.
Wow, I love what both of you said. One thing I like always think about is like there's a difference between sort of being a manager and being a leader, and like part of being president is a lot of managerial things, like making the meeting minutes and making sure that the calendar is set and all of that. But then for me, like, I feel like I meet one-on-one with a lot of my e-board members and like try to figure out what are their goals, what do they want to achieve in the year, and what are they passionate about, and how can what they're passionate about contribute to our overall sort of mission. And so, yeah, I just definitely resonate with what both of you said. So has your leadership style like changed as over the year, or I guess half year that you've been president? Like, did you find that you had to make some changes based on, just some learning lessons and maybe some mishaps along the way? Did you feel like you had to change your leadership style in any way?
I think Leena and I have actually also talked about this, but I just, I guess, in terms of my leadership style, I am definitely a collaborative leader and very hands-on. I get all my energy from being with people, so I love being invested and seeing what everyone is doing. But that can also create problems because, I might not feel like I want to give this work to someone else or make someone else do something if they have a lot on their plate. And I think at the beginning, what would happen at the beginning of this past year is that I would end up doing a lot of the work and micromanaging a lot, which makes it impossible. And then it does not become a fun thing. And so I think having this balance in this medium of still, being empathetic, still caring where people are at, but delegating and understanding that it is not your job to do everything makes life a lot easier. And it just, it sets an easier boundary as well. You don't want to interfere.
Yeah, exactly. I've really learned how to delegate, if that's one thing I've learned from this position so far. Because before this, when I was the VP of operations or VP of projects, I really did have a lot of people I had to interact with about pretty much everything. So there was a lot of daily tasks and all of that. But now I'll talk to the VP of projects and I'll talk to the VP of operations. So I don't have to, I shouldn't be micromanaging the entire club. It's much more of a higher level role.
Yeah,
and that's good for me and good for the rest of the club as well.
Are there any particular challenges that you have faced being a leader?
I think one challenge I face, but it's kind of universal, is just time management. Really, because once I took on this position, there's a lot more responsibility associated and lots of different facets involved. I have learned how to schedule a certain time every day that I'm actually active on Slack and that I use to respond to messages, but making sure that I set aside time to do that. And so I'm not constantly on Slack, because otherwise that interferes with every other task of the day.
Yeah.
That's smart. I might have to integrate that, Leena. So LavaLab, we actually fully changed what our normal semester looks like last semester, because we really came to terms with our lack of diversity in the organization. And so it was the first semester in, I guess, 15 or 16 semesters where we did not recruit a cohort. And we spent the entire summer really rethinking what to do to help Black students on USC's campus. And so we basically spent the whole summer talking to Black leaders, talking to Black students, talking to administration, and thinking about how we can make entrepreneurship accessible and inclusive on campus. And so we created, similar to CAIS++, an open curriculum for entrepreneurship that teaches bootstrapping, product management, design, development, as well as basically a pro bono service to help students with their startups. And so as a leader, doing something that an organization has never done for the first time was definitely scary, because you don't know how it's going to work. And there's a lot of people, there's a main reason why you're doing this, and you want to make sure that it is impactful and effective. So I think diving in head first was definitely terrifying, but I'm very happy and proud of the way that it turned out. But that risk taking definitely was a challenge.
Actually, yeah, just to build on that, I just realized, because you asked about the challenges, I think one thing that's been really challenging is taking on the leadership position during the pandemic, just in general, because yeah, I should have thought of that first, but yeah, that was something that just came up. Because I guess I haven't really seen anyone in my club since last March, but I guess the club is a social construct, so it still continues. We've managed to keep a sense of fellowship, but that was very hard in the beginning of fall, to have enough events on Zoom for people to still feel connected.
No, totally. I was just going to mention that. I feel like coming into the presidency, in the fall, there were two things on my mind. One was trying to pivot everything to a virtual format. So we definitely had to work out some kinks. And then the other thing, Gloria, you're mentioning, just this whole sort of movement about diversity and in organizations, and we definitely had to like consciously think about that, and that was the first time ASME had ever really thought about that and brought it into the conversation. So yeah, definitely good changes, but definitely a lot of work as far as the virtual navigating the virtual environments.
Yeah.
Who do you look up to as your female leader role model?
I would say mine is Reshma Sujani, who is the founder and CEO of Girls Who Code. I did Girls Who Code when I was 15, which is how I got into computer science. And Reshma was at our little graduation in 2015. But she is such a role model because, for so many reasons, but she has a TED Talk called Brave Not Perfect, and she wrote a book on it. She has an entire blog on it, but really like teaching women and especially young girls in computer science that it's not about being perfect, and it's about failing fast. And just because you fail, it doesn't mean that you're not smart. It doesn't mean that you're not talented. It doesn't mean all these things. But not to strive for perfection. But she's the reason why I'm here today. So.
And I think, for me, apart from my mom, who's amazing, I think I have a couple of female role models in Viterbi itself. So Maya Matarik from USC's Interaction Lab. She's also the current Vice Provost of Research for all of USC. She's one of my role models, and she's my research advisor. And also Professor Isra Dilkina, she's the head of CAIS, so the organization that's our parent of CAIS++.
I would say mine is like also my research advisor, Professor Zavaleta. I've been working for her since freshman year, and just how she's able to like lead the lab and establish such a inclusive culture has been definitely inspiring for me. So my last question is, after being president, I guess we're not at the end of your tenure as president, but after having this experience, do you have leadership aspirations in the future?
Going along with LavaLab's mission, it would make sense that I would love to start my own company one day. I don't know exactly what that field would look like. I think for me, it makes sense to use technology as my means to an end to help people. And I know it's a super generic answer, but it's really why I got into computer science when I was 15. And so I've always dreamt of starting my company and just working with a group of people who really care about something and just leading it together. So that is my leadership aspiration.
Yeah, I think my leadership aspirations are very connected to who my role models are. So I currently would like to become a scientist, a research scientist, ideally in academia, and be a professor who runs a lab, does research in AI. Right now, I'm currently interested in affective computing, so how to develop machines with the ability to perceive and respond to human emotions and behaviors. So it's kind of at the intersection of like computer science and psychology. So yeah, I want to be a scientist, and I guess the whole leadership part of it would be running a lab.
You'll do it. I already see you there, Leena. I already see you there. What are your leadership aspirations, Dominie?
Mine? So I don't know if you might not know, but I am planning on pursuing medical school, but my aspirations are actually kind of similar to Leena in that I want to go into academics at a med school. So my future, I hope to lead a lab as well as practice medicine simultaneously.
That's great. So like an MD, PhD?
Yeah, so I am applying to some MD, PhD programs as well as some MD programs that have a big research emphasis. So
I love that.
So yeah.
Look at us, just three McCarthy gals from freshman year to now.
Yeah, I know.
We should have this podcast again in like 10 years.
I know, like an alumni. I know,
Yeah.
seriously. No, we definitely should. I'm excited for us. But yeah, thank you both so much for taking the time to tell me, but our listeners as well, about being a leader in Viterbi. I know that you have your own role models, but you both are also role models for those listening, for really any girls who want to be leaders one day. And I hope everyone tuning in has gained some valuable insights into, leadership and something that they can apply to their own lives.
All right, thanks so much, Dominie, for that one. I think one of the cool parts when Dominie's had this idea for a while, and one thing that's cool about like this year is so many of the clubs and organizations in Viterbi are led by women. So of course we have Glory and Leena, and Leena was actually on the podcast a couple years ago when I did an episode on sort of ethics and AI and CAIS.
Yeah.
So check that one out. But for example, RPL, our lab lead, her name's Lauren Potter. She's also been on the podcast before. I know Scope, Claire Powers runs, like I think actually almost all the major CS clubs this year, I saw Claire had posted on LinkedIn the other day, are run by women, which I think is super cool because that's not necessarily the makeup of all of these clubs. So I think it's important to sort of recognize all of them as the leaders they are.
Absolutely. I think the idea of gender parity has gotten a lot of press, and how our incoming class has got that 50-50, like that's our standard now. But I think the stat that you just shared, more anecdotal in nature, but is much more important, which is the leadership makeup of the school, the ones who set the tone, the ones who kind of create or help to build and shape the environments that you're in, both of which you two are a large part of. So let's not overlook just the two of you and your leadership skills and your presence on campus, both back when pre-COVID and also in this virtual environment. I'm interested in hearing from both of you. Was this idea of being a leader a goal? How did you get here?
Yeah, I think for me, yes, always.
I would say for me, I came into college not having much leadership experience, actually. And so initially, I didn't really see myself as a leader. And it wasn't until I put myself out there, I got involved on executive boards of student orgs like early on, like my freshman year. And throughout, I would say like through like sophomore year, I started to recognize, I do have some qualities that people, like and people want to follow, and people find me sometimes inspiring maybe. And so it wasn't, and then junior year, I was like, okay, I'm going to run for president. I mentioned in my conversation with Leena and Chloe that I'm president of the Associate Students of Biomedical Engineering. So got to also talk about that.
Well, I also think that I think this might be one of the first distinctions that men and women make, is that men see stereotypically, so this is not everybody, men tend to see leadership as titles and positions, and women see leadership as responsibilities. And would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting conversation. I think especially within the context of like college organizations and stuff like that, because I definitely think there's an element to it of like certain people want to lead an organization for the title. And maybe I know for me, like kind of everything I've done in college, I've done because I wanted to learn something.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that distinction, I'm not going to break that into gender lines necessarily, but I do think I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting looking at COVID too, and I'm sure everyone's read stories about this, but like countries who have women leaders have done much better than countries like ours who had not for hundreds of years.
There's a strong quote. Every single country with female leaders has managed the COVID crisis almost entirely.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I've definitely learned about from leading teams within BSA, and just leadership isn't like leading a team necessarily. Leadership is just what you do. Is like being empathetic and understanding, and like someone people are comfortable like being a friend too in college
Yeah.
is important. So yeah, Dominie would, and I think too, back to your earlier question, and Dominie was kind of saying she like didn't necessarily see herself as a leader first. I definitely always kind of felt that way in high school, and I feel like I've gone through like arcs of it, like arcs of self-doubt.
Yeah.
But I definitely think like as I reach the end, like I'm like confident in that as like a goal of mine. So yeah.
Dominie, what do you think?
Yeah, in response to your question, I agree. With Audrey, and I don't think I could probably say that along gender lines, that men just think
Sure.
of it as a title, and women think of it as responsibility. But I would say that what I've learned over the past 4 years of college is that like everyone has their own leadership style, but good leaders have common qualities. And I think we realized that when we're talking about this in the episode, and that like we all feel like empathy and you know, reaching out to our e-board members one-on-one and just making sure that they feel like they're growing and they're achieving what they want to achieve is really important. How we go about that might be a little different, but at the end of the day, like what's important to us and what we think is what we think is like a good leader, we're actually pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, and again, I'm just starting the conversation there as far as like men and women seeing things differently. And maybe it's not so much the title versus responsibility, but there's this idea of absorbing responsibility, problem solving, the ideas of empathy that you both just very eloquently discussed. This idea of seeing it as something that you're going to do, not that it's something you're trying to accomplish, if that makes sense. It's not like you're trying to earn an award. You're just trying to be involved and engage. And because that idea of sometimes what I talk to students about with the ideas of servant leadership, this idea like we are here to serve is a very different mentality. And I always recommend for any leader that idea to look up and take guidance from servant leadership. And when I always recommend to incoming students, when I used to give some leadership talks to incoming students, is that you shouldn't be out there seeking the rewards or the recognition. You should be out there seeking the experiences and take on these like what would probably be considered low end responsibilities, you know. And I always tell first year students, like, know your place on the totem pole. You know, you came out of high school, you know, king or queen of the hill. You're here to earn your way up again. And there's a lot to learn in this new culture, in this environment. And maybe you were the president of Relay for Life at your high school. Should that mean you should be president of that similar type of organization in college? Probably not. You got to understand the culture. You got to understand the traditions. You got to understand the problems and the scenarios and how to solve those problems. And you'll probably have some sort of unique perspective on those things, but you only will gain those perspectives by being involved in doing and seeing where you're going with this. So I you know, obviously a female leadership episode, perfect. But really what it's about is learning the aspects of successful leadership and how to navigate it. And I think the ideas of empathy and responsibility are huge. And both of you carry that, you know, whether you mean to or not, and something that people should look up to and learn from. So I'm really appreciative of you bringing this episode and talking a little bit more about this. It's a great open-ended conversation.